This dude wakes up in an iron cage, completely naked, and has no clue where the hell he is. He gives her a little smirk, basically telling her to stay calm because he's got that main character energy under control. In the cage next door, the blue-haired girl named Nino is looking absolutely traumatized. The vibes are definitely not immaculate over there, no cap. Hakuma's stressing out big time, her hands gripping the bars as she watches the guards like they're about to do something sus. Finally, Jin decides it's time to stop sitting around and stands up, ready to flex on everyone in the room. He grabs the iron bars and starts bending them like they're made of literal paper. He's actually built different. Nino's jaw practically hits the floor when she sees him casually disrespecting the cage like that. She's shook. He takes a second to check himself out, totally unbothered by the fact that he's basically in his underwear while escaping. He asks if she knows about the energy as a green glow forms in his hand. It's nanomachine time, and things are about to get wild. The green light washes over Nino, catching her completely off guard as the energy starts swirling around her like a filter. She looks down at her hands, totally confused by the strange power buzzing through her system. It's definitely a mood. Jin just gives her this cold, serious look while she worries about her brother. He's locked in and ready to end this. A quick memory of the bandit snatching up kids flashes by, reminding everyone why these guys deserve a massive L. Nino relives the moment she was told they'd be separated for life, and the trauma is living rent-free in her head. Jin's hand clenches into a fist as the anger builds up. He's definitely about to choose violence and we're here for it. Outside, a wolf-eared guard is just chilling, thinking he's the main character of his own story. Talk about delusional. He hears a suspicious noise behind the door and turns around, totally oblivious to the fact that he's about to be caught in 4K. The door straight up explodes off its hinges, sending the guard flying. That's one way to make an entrance. Jin walks out of the smoke looking like he just stepped out of a gym session, ready to clean house and slay. He's got this terrifying glow in his eyes that screams, everyone in this building is cooked, and honestly, same. He grabs a guard by the hair and starts dragging him along like he's taking out the trash. The disrespect is real. Two more guards try to step up and tell him to stop, but they're clearly punching way above their weight class. But Jin's already turned their buddy into a human floor mat. Rest in peace to that guy, he really thought he did something. The other guard is backed against the wall, wondering how Jin even got in there while shaking like a leaf. Jin just tosses another guard into the air like he's tossing a salad, zero effort required, just pure vibes. He catches the next guy by the throat, and the look on his face is pure, I should have stayed in bed today. A quick strike and the guy's lights are out before he can even process what's happening. Jin really ate that. The leader asks what the hell he is, and Jin just stands over the wreckage looking like a total boss. Another guard is crawling away, screaming for help while Jin towers over him like a final boss. It's giving menace. The bandit leader finally shows his face, and he's stuttering because he knows his career is about to get cancelled. Jin lifts a guard up by the head, showing exactly zero mercy for these absolute clowns. The audacity of these men. The leader tries to play it off with a nervous smile, but his eyes are screaming for help. He knows he's finished. He points over to a cage filled with kids and asks if Jin wants slaves. Pure clown behavior, honestly. Jin doesn't even blink. He's seen enough of this guy's trash behavior to know he's not worth the air he breathes. The leader ends up on the floor, looking pathetic while Jin looms over him like a storm cloud. Elmu. He's sweating bullets now, wondering what's going on because none of his tricks are working on Jin. Jin stares him down, and the silence in the room is louder than any threat he could possibly make. The leader's heart is racing. He's finally realizing he picked a fight with the literal ultimate weapon and he's not ready. Jin leans in close, and you can practically feel the, it's over for you, energy radiating off him. It's the intensity for me. The guy tries to make a break for it, running like his life depends on it, which it definitely does, no cap. He pulls a big red lever, screaming that it isn't over yet, thinking he's finally got an ace up his sleeve. A massive, terrifying monster breaks out of the shadows, and the real boss fight is finally starting. The bandit leader pulls the lever and releases this absolute unit of a monster, screaming at it to wreck everything in sight. The Corruptor isn't wasting any time and goes straight for the kill, swinging its massive arm like it's swatting a fly. But Jin Shidō is just staring it down with those cold eyes, looking completely unbothered by the giant purple beast. The monster's punch lands with enough force to shake the whole base, creating a massive explosion of dust and debris. The leader thinks he finally caught a W and starts laughing like a total clown, convinced Jin is a goner. But when the smoke clears, Jin is literally just standing there holding the monster's fist with one hand, proving he's just built different. He flexes so hard his muscles are practically popping. This man has that main character build working overtime, no cap. Jin delivers a punch right back into the monster's gut, telling the thug that on top of his strength, he knows their weakness. He explains that you need more than just brute force for Corruptors as his hand starts glowing with blue energy. A massive beam of light erupts from Jin's palm, completely vaporizing the Corruptor and ending its whole career. The bandit leader is left sitting in the dirt, absolutely shook as his secret weapon literally turns into a cloud of smoke. He's stuttering about how Jin can use holy power too, while the silver-haired beast just looms over him like a final boss. Close-up of the leader's face, and yeah, he's sweating bullets because he knows he's officially cooked. Jin finishes the job with a direct hit right to the guy's face. Talk about taking a massive L. But why is Jin so powerful? How did he even get these abilities? Yeah, it all started 100 million years ago. Earth was straight up cooked. Pollution and human greed basically turned the whole planet into a massive, burning dumpster fire. Down on the ground, things were looking grim. These corruptors were out here treating humanity like a late-night snack. This poor guy is literally begging for his life, but these monsters don't speak mercy. They just speak dinner time. His final message is a heavy one. He wants whoever's left to settle the score for everyone who didn't make it. Enter Jin Shidō. He pulls up with a glow-up so bright it's basically a flashbang for the monsters. He's just standing there, aura on absolute maximum. The monsters have no idea they're about to be deleted. The survivor gets out a quick thank you, but he's already at the end of his health bar. Jin takes it personally. Jin remembers his mission and his creator, Kagura. It was time to pull the trigger on the final plan. See, these corruptors were built different. They could regenerate from basically anything, making the military look like they were using water guns. Even nukes were just a light breeze to these things. Humanity was getting farmed, and they needed a literal god-tier weapon to stop it. Kagura didn't hold back. He ran all the experiments to create the ultimate counter, a human who could actually fight back. The plan wasn't just about throwing hands, though. They needed a long-term fix for the whole planet's situation. Nanomachines were the secret sauce. Tiny tech meant to wipe out the monsters and fix the air so humans could breathe again. If the nanomachines worked, they'd slowly scrub the earth clean. But it was gonna take a minute, or a few million years. Jin looks ready to take the longest nap in history. He's trusting Kagura to handle the details while he's on ice. Jin steps into the stasis pod. This is it, the ultimate gamble to see if humanity has a future at all. Kagura's job is to make sure that one tiny spark of hope stays alive while the world outside keeps falling apart. While Jin's asleep, the monsters are basically throwing a worldwide rager. They've completely taken over. Huge kaiju-looking things are wandering the ruins. The world is unrecognizable, and it's definitely not for humans anymore. Even the small stuff is scary now. Life is evolving, but it's all teeth and claws out there in the streets. Fast forward a casual 100 million years. The timer finally hits 0, and the pod is ready to pop. Outside, things have changed. New species are roaming around, and they're still dealing with some of the old-school threats. Hakama and her crew are running for their lives. They accidentally aggroed a monster and they're definitely not leveled up enough for this. They're panicking hard. If they don't find a way out soon, they're going to be a very sad footnote in history. They burst through a massive door into a room that looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie, not their world. The place is huge, filled with tech they don't understand. It's basically an ancient temple to them, but the monster is right on their heels. It's huge, it's hungry, and it's definitely not impressed by the decor. Hakama is basically begging for a miracle at this point. They're cornered with nowhere else to run. Suddenly, a beam of green light shoots out. It's like the room just woke up and chose violence. The monster gets absolutely vaporized. 1 second it's a threat, the next it's just glowing dust. Talk about a save. A pair of feet step out of the wreckage. The nap is officially over, and the world isn't ready. Jin Shidō stands there, glowing eyes and everything. He's naked as the day he was made, but he still looks terrifying. He starts checking out the old computer terminals. 100 million years and he's still got that tech support energy. He finds a syringe of the good stuff. Probably some high-tier upgrades or just his morning coffee. Jin turns around, totally forgetting he's currently in his birthday suit. Hakama and the kids are beyond shook. He steps outside and sees the new world. It's green, lush, and actually looks like a place people could live. Mission accomplished, kind of. Hakama offers to show him the ropes. To her, he's a legend. To him, she's a very confused tour guide. Jin's taking it all in. The world is different, but he's still got that soldier mindset. He's ready for whatever comes next. The kids are whispering, trying to figure out what kind of creature he is. They think he might be a koala or a cat. Little do they know, Hakama looks back, wondering if she just picked up a guardian god or just a very powerful weirdo. Jin walks alongside her. He's the ultimate weapon in a world that's moved on, and it's time to see what's left to fight for. This kid is literally shaking. He looks like he just saw his browser history go public. The village is straight up cooked. Everything's on fire and it's looking like a total L for the residents. These kids are running back into the smoke like they're trying to speedrun a game over. Jin Shidō pulls up to the scene. He's just walking into the fire like it's a heated lobby and he's the only one with a mic. Hakama is stressing out. She's seeing her home turn into a bonfire and she's not vibing with it at all. Grandma is actually a beast. She's holding off a literal monster with nothing but a stick and pure determination. She's locked in. No fear, just straight boss energy while she tries to protect what's left. But this monster is definitely not mid. It's huge, it's ugly, and it's definitely not here for a civil conversation. It chomps down on her staff like it's a snack. Things are looking pretty bad for Grandma right now. Hakama tries to jump in with some holy power. She's got that glowing aura, but she's still just a kid in a monster's world. Jin decides he's seen enough. He moves so fast he's basically a blur, entering the chat with zero warning. A single punch is all it takes. He sends that monster flying like it's a ragdoll in a buggy physics engine. He catches Grandma before she can hit the ground. Smooth move, honestly. 10 out of 10 for the assist. Hakama's power flares up again. She's trying to help, but she's mostly just shocked at how hard Jin just hit that thing. Hakama is cheering now. Finally, someone who actually knows how to carry the team has arrived. But then she sees something that makes her stop. Maybe she's realizing just how different Jin really is. Somewhere else, this hot-headed kid is trying to be a hero. He's throwing hands, well, fire, at another monster. Boom. A big explosion hits the target, but is it enough to actually finish the job? The monster is down and out, smoking like a bad engine. Seems like the kids have some bite too. Jin is lost in thought, remembering Kagura. He's starting to realize that the world he woke up in is a total fever dream. Grandma starts talking to him, probably asking who he is or why he's so cracked at fighting. Hakama runs over, probably relieved that the village isn't completely a lost cause yet. Grandma looks exhausted. Fighting monsters at that age is definitely not how most people want to spend their retirement. But wait, there's more. Something nasty is brewing in the water. It looks like a bunch of monster eggs. This little guy is a larval corruptor. It looks small, but it's definitely a do-not-pet situation. And they're coming out in droves. It's like a bug raid and the village is the only thing on the menu. The villagers are gathering, and everyone is feeling the pressure. This isn't just a one-off attack, it's an invasion. Then we meet Sauls. This guy has serious, main character syndrome and he's already acting like he's the strongest one there. The villagers are talking strategy, or maybe just hoping Sauls actually knows what he's doing. Grandma is not having it. She's yelling at Hakama, probably telling her to stay back where it's safe. Hakama turns to Jin, maybe hoping he'll step in and show everyone how it's really done. Sauls is just standing there with a smug look on his face. He's got a spear and zero humility. The other kid is just confused. He's probably wondering why everyone is arguing when there are literal monsters outside. Sauls looks at Jin and straight up laughs. He thinks because Jin doesn't have animal ears, he's just some lesser species weakling. He's being super dismissive, acting like Jin is just baggage that Hakama dragged along. Talk about a bad first impression. He's gloating about his own skills, probably thinking his spirit arts make him untouchable. Jin just stares at him with the most deadpan expression ever. He's really out here getting roasted by a kid with cat ears. Sauls points his spear right at Jin, telling him to stay out of the way and let the real warriors handle the business. The tension is rising. Sauls is trying to flex his authority, but he has no idea who he's actually messing with. Sauls just brushes it off like he's the only one who matters. He's really out here acting like a whole main character. He gives one last smug look over his shoulder. The main character energy is definitely there, but it's the toxic kind. Grandma and the kids are looking pretty doubtful. They know that running away might have been the smarter play, but Sauls is all about that no retreat life. Jin Shidō is just standing there looking like a whole snack with that I'm the main character energy. Grandma is out here giving her thanks, probably relieved she doesn't have to fight for her life anymore. She's stressing about it being their last chance, but Hakama is just low-key happy they're safe for now. Jin Shidō has that look in his eyes like he's about to ratio someone into oblivion. Hakama is officially a stan. Her eyes are literally sparkling seeing this absolute legend in action. But wait, here comes Sauls, charging in like he's got something to prove. Talk about main character syndrome. The monster pops up from the water, and honestly, it's looking pretty mid compared to our boy Jin. Sauls is already knee-deep in the water, ready to show off his skills. Let's see if he can actually cook. Hey, monster. Sauls is really out here trying to act cool before he gets his reality check. He's claiming he's gonna carry the whole nation and become a holy knight. The delusions are real, no cap. He goes for the strike, trying to be all flashy for the cameras that don't exist. Lightning energy everywhere. It's a vibe, but is it enough to actually get a W? The monster head is looking absolutely sus. It's gross and slimy and definitely doesn't pass the vibe check. Suddenly, it's not just one. More heads are popping up like they're trying to join a group chat. Sauls is realizing he's surrounded. This is definitely starting to look like an L for him. He's slashing away with his spear, trying to clear the field. He's doing the most, honestly. He lands a hit on the big guy. The special effects are fire, but the damage? Probably mid. He tells the monster to eat something. He really thinks he's him right now. Sauls is mid-air, doing some acrobatics like he's auditioning for a circus. He's got that smug grin on his face. He thinks he's already won the battle, but the monster is still standing, and Sauls is landing back in the water like a total flop. The monster's wounds are glowing and closing up. It's straight up hacking the game at this point. Sauls is shook. He didn't expect the monster to have that level of regeneration, and now the monster is ready to clap back. Sauls is looking like he's about to be ghosted by life itself. He's in full defensive mode, sweating because he knows he's cooked. But then Jin Shidō pulls up behind him, cool and collected as always. The blue aura is just different. Sauls is like, why you? He's probably thinking Jin is just here to steal his kills. Jin doesn't even break a sweat. He moves faster than the Wi-Fi in a Starbucks, stopping the monster cold. He's barely lifting a finger. The level of disrespect is actually legendary. A massive shield of blue light erupts, and the monster gets sent back to the lobby. Sauls is just standing there, mouth open, probably questioning his entire existence. The villagers are running over, probably wondering why the water is suddenly a laser show. Grandma is looking stressed. This whole situation is definitely not good for her blood pressure. She's in absolute shock. Seeing someone move that fast and hit that hard is definitely not normal. The monster is trying to make a comeback, but Jin is just standing there like a stone wall. Jin looks back at Sauls with a "move, kid" expression. Sauls is still buffering. Jin grabs the kid to get him out of the splash zone. Safety first, no cap. He straight up yeets Sauls out of the way so he can finish the job properly. Sauls is flying through the air, probably feeling a mix of confusion and, what just happened? Jin Shidō is locked in. He's about to show everyone what a real, ultimate weapon can do. Pillars of light erupt from the water. The visuals are 10 out of 10, absolutely busts in. The Corruptor is getting absolutely shredded by Jin's laser beams. Total domination. Period. Sauls is looking at Jin Shidō like he just saw a legendary Pokemon. He's absolutely shook, no cap. Flashback to Jin grabbing the kid and yeeting him out of the way. He really saved him from becoming a mid-snack. Sauls is out here having an existential crisis. He realized his main character energy was actually just a placeholder. Jin Shidō is just standing there looking iconic while Sauls is in the back still trying to process the whole situation. Close up on the eyes. Jin is high-key locked in. He's about to drop the hardest ratio of the century. Sauls is clenching his fist like he's about to start some beef, but deep down he knows he's just a supporting character. The monster is still trying to be a menace, but Jin is just looking over his shoulder like, is this it? This is the boss. This monster is straight up nightmare fuel. It really needs to fix its vibe because this is not it. Jin is moving so fast he's basically a glitch in the matrix. He's finna show this monster why he's the GOAT. The focus is insane. Jin's eyes are giving 100% don't test me energy right now. He literally blocks a massive strike with zero effort. The level of disrespect is actually legendary. The monster is roaring and doing the most, but Jin is just standing his ground like a stone-cold wall. Sauls is out here screaming, probably trying to give advice that nobody asked for. Talk about being extra. Blue energy is crackling everywhere. Jin is fully charged and ready to slay the entire field. Period. The world as he knew it is long gone, replaced by a strange, quiet wasteland. Jin Shidō stands alone, energy crackling around him as he takes in the sight. He doesn't waste any time, focusing a concentrated blast of blue light into his hand. Nearby, Sauls can only watch in absolute terror as the power levels spike beyond anything he's ever seen. Back in the 21st century, Jin was Earth's ultimate weapon, a soldier fighting a losing war against monsters called Corruptors. His creator, Kagura, worked tirelessly in the lab to give humanity a fighting chance. Now, millions of years later, that same cold intensity hasn't left the soldier's eyes. He points his hand toward the sky, unleashing a beam of pure energy. The massive worm monster that was terrorizing the village lets out a final, desperate roar. It doesn't stand a chance, getting completely vaporized by the sheer heat of the strike. As the dust settles, only a smoldering crater remains where the beast once stood. The villagers just stand there with their mouths hanging open, unable to process what they just witnessed. Hakama, on the other hand, looks at Jin like he's a literal god. From high above, the strike looks like a needle of light piercing the planet's surface. All that's left of the giant Corruptor is a few charred pieces floating in the water. Sauls is sweating bullets, finally realizing just how outmatched he really was. Jin casually claps his hands together to shake off the dust, completely unbothered. He looks back with a calm gaze, leaving the blue-haired kid stammering for words. The lake returns to its peaceful state, the threat gone in a matter of seconds. Hiding in the nearby brush, a girl has been watching the whole thing. She peeks through a lens, focusing her attention on the mysterious silver-haired man. A grin spreads across her face as she realizes she's found someone incredible. She's practically vibrating with excitement, clearly planning her next move. Meanwhile, Jin finds a quiet spot and activates a small cube, bringing up a hologram of his creator. Kagura's image flickers to life, his voice a relic from a century long dead. The message shows recordings of a world that has finally begun to heal itself after millions of years. But even in this new paradise, the monsters didn't just disappear, they evolve. Jin listens intently, knowing the mission he was built for isn't over yet. Kagura explains that while Jin was in stasis, he stayed behind to monitor the planet's recovery. But something unexpected popped up on his scanners, catching him off guard. High above the atmosphere, satellites were still tracking the movement of a new threat. The footage shows a new type of creature standing over the remains of its prey. It was faster, stronger, and far more intelligent than the Corruptors of old. The scientist realized that while the environment was recovering, it was giving birth to something even more dangerous. This evolved species was designed to thrive in the new world, making it the perfect predator. Back in the present, Jin's new companions look on, unaware of the history behind the monsters they face. Kagura's final instructions are clear. Jin needs to keep evolving if he wants to survive. With the recording finished, Jin shuts down the hologram and prepares himself. He pulls out a syringe filled with a glowing green serum, his next step in evolution. Without hesitation, he drives the needle into his arm, letting the nanomachines take over. Electricity surges through his veins as his body begins to adapt to the new atmosphere. He clenches his fists, feeling the raw power flowing through his limbs. A blade of pure energy manifests in his palm, proof that Earth's ultimate weapon is back in business. Jin watches the hologram of his creator, Kagura, whose image from the past remains perfectly preserved. The map on the screen flickers, showing the state of the world millions of years ago, a landscape he barely recognizes. Far from the ruins, a group of riders travels through a lush landscape toward a massive waterfall. Leading the group is Argus Wilton, a high-ranking holy knight, his expression as stern as his armor. Beside him, Miria can't contain her excitement, her laughter ringing out over the sound of the horses. They're heading toward a nearby town, a peaceful place that has flourished under the protection of the capital. In a quiet library, a young woman focuses on her studies, surrounded by stacks of ancient lore. Back in the forest, Kagura's hologram offers a warm smile, a comforting sight for the lonely soldier. But as the recording continues, the scientist's expression turns more serious. He looks older in the final segments, the weight of his long watch finally showing on his face. Jin listens in silence, absorbing every detail of the message left for him across the eons. With a final word, the hologram begins to dissipate, the light fading back into the cube. Jin pockets the device just as Hakama and her friends come running back, their faces full of relief. The young girl clings to his arm, still shaken from the monster's attack but grateful he's there. She wears a small key as a charm, a humble piece of jewelry that catches the light. Jin allows her to lead him toward the village, realizing he's finally found a place to start his new life. He takes a closer look at the charm, finding it curious for such a young girl to carry. That evening, the villagers gather around a massive bonfire to celebrate their survival. The atmosphere is festive, with everyone sharing food and stories under the starlit sky. Jin enters the circle with the children, immediately becoming the center of attention. One of the men nearly drops his drink, staring at the silver-haired stranger with wide eyes. Jin ignores the stares, his attention drawn to a sudden commotion on the other side of the fire. Sauls is standing over a fallen villager, his face flushed with anger as he shouts about his failures. One of the elders just laughs it off, clearly used to the hot-headed boy's dramatic outbursts. Jin steps in to calm the situation, his presence alone commanding respect from everyone present. The village leaders approach him, expressing their deep gratitude for saving their home. A small smirk plays on Jin's lips as he realizes these people are far more welcoming than he expected. As the night goes on, he finds himself looking up at the stars, wondering what else has changed. The tall beast man explains the current state of the world and the dangers that still lurk in the dark. In the distance, the spires of the royal capital, Kolmozia, glow brightly against the night sky. They discuss the corruptors, including the silk-producing monsters that provide for the village's trade. The older woman speaks kindly to Jin, offering him a place to stay and a new set of clothes. She gently pats Hakama's head, thankful the little girl made it back safely. The next morning, the view of the capital's grand entrance is even more impressive in the daylight. Jin takes it all in, his traveler's cloak billowing in the wind as he prepares for the journey ahead. Sauls is back to his usual self, boasting about his own strength while the others look on with doubt. He lets out a loud laugh, clearly trying to impress the villagers and the newcomer. The elder woman doesn't miss a beat, quickly putting the arrogant boy back in his place. Jin and Hakama watch the bickering with a mix of amusement and exhaustion. Jin rubs his chin thoughtfully, already planning his next move in this strange new world. Deep in the forest, Argus stops to check on his horse, sensing that something in the air has changed. Miria approaches him with a report, her expression finally turning serious as she mentions the giant Corruptors' defeat. A massive clawed foot descends, shaking the very earth beneath it. Miria Wilton, pinned and helpless, lets out a frantic laugh as the giant Corruptor looms over her. Before the monster can strike, Argus Wilton interposes himself, his sword drawn to protect his younger sister. With a powerful sweep of his blade, he cleaves through the beast, blood spraying across the forest floor. The morning sun rises over a lush valley, its golden light chasing away the shadows of the night. Nice morning, Jin Shidō murmurs, waking up in the modest guest house of the village. Stretching, he brushes back his silver hair, his sharp blue eyes reflecting the clarity of the new day. A young beast boy enters timidly, his arms full of freshly laundered clothes for the village's savior. Jin stands at the balcony, his back showing the marks of countless battles, as he looks out at the peaceful mountain scenery. Later that day, the villagers gather along the main path to bid a heartfelt farewell to the man who saved them. Hakama and the others watch him with a mix of sadness and admiration as he prepares to depart. Sauls crosses his arms and scoffs, trying to hide his respect with his usual grumpy attitude. Jin gives a warm smile to the girl, assuring her that they'll see each other again. He shakes hands with the village leader, while Sauls makes a loud, boastful show of strength in the background. The leader places a reassuring hand on Hakama's shoulder, promising to keep her safe as Jin departs. Waving one last time, Jin sets off on his journey, the villagers' cheers following him into the distance. To his surprise, Hakama catches up to him, her small legs working hard to keep pace with his long strides. They arrive at a pristine waterfall, where the girl takes a moment to splash some cold water on her face. Pointing across the river, she excitedly describes the path ahead, acting as a guide for her silver-haired companion. As dusk falls, they set up a small campfire in a forest clearing, the orange flames dancing in the darkness. The two of them share a simple meal of bread, the quiet of the forest surrounding them. Jin says, as Hakama speaks while eating, her eyes bright with curiosity about his origins. His expression grows serious as he explains the harsh reality. The Corruptors won't die out that easily. In his mind's eye, he sees a vision of a colossal, skeletal monster, a reminder of the scale of the threat. He continues his explanation by the fire, his voice low as he teaches the young girl about the nature of their enemies. Hakama listens with wide-eyed wonder, absorbing every word from the mysterious warrior. She tilts her head, trying to process the complex information Jin is sharing with her. Under a vast, star-filled sky, Hakama looks up and softly calls out, "Jin-sama." They sit together in companionable silence, the heat from the fire warding off the night chill. Miles away, Argus Wilton leads his squad through the dark, his mind focused on his mission. Alongside him are his elite knights, including a woman with long green hair and another with beast-like features. The holy knight's eyes narrow, his sharp senses alert for any sign of the ultimate weapon's return. Back at the camp, Jin remains vigilant, his sharp gaze reflecting the flickering firelight. The knights continue their patrol, their horses' hooves thumping steadily against the earth. Jin looks at Hakama and asks, "So these are the..." as he prepares to learn more about the current era's guardians. In another part of the forest, the beast girl knight snarls, her animal instincts triggered by a discovery. She lets out a sharp cry, alerting the rest of the squad to her discovery. "Captain, these are definitely the ones," she reports, as Argus prepares to dismount. The holy knight smiles, his gaze fixed on the path ahead as his team prepares to move in. At the campsite, Hakama freezes mid-bite, her keen ears picking up an approaching sound. The beast girl knight smirks, her sharp teeth bared as she anticipates the coming encounter. She springs forward with predatory speed, her hand already moving toward her weapon. The beast girl knight barks an accusation, her blade steady and lethal as she traps Jin in her sights. Jin stands his ground, more puzzled by the mention of birth records than by the sharp edge of the knight's sword. Argus Wilton remains calm, his noble silhouette sharp against the night sky as he oversees his subordinates' aggressive questioning. Meanwhile, Hakama remains seated on the ground, her big eyes blinking in confusion at the sudden talk of high-quality fabrics and the capital. The elite holy knight Argus Wilton stands tall in his golden armor, looking down at a dog-eared girl named Hakama who's squeezed into a suit of her own. Argus starts to draw his sword, the moonlight gleaming off the sharp edge. Across from him stands Jin Shidō, the silver-haired guy who's just woken up after 100 million years. Even with a blade pointed straight at his throat, Jin doesn't even blink. Argus demands to know who he is, keeping his weapon steady as he looms over the stranger. Hakama watches from the side, sweating bullets at the tension. One of the subordinate knights, a girl with green hair and finned ears, starts channeling her magic. Argus's eyes go sharp. He can tell there's something seriously wrong with the guy in front of him. Crosses of light flare up around the green-haired knight as she gets ready to blast him. She looks determined, ready to put this lesser being in his place. Jin just watches her struggle with the holy power, like it's a science experiment, totally unimpressed. Argus thrusts his sword forward, the blade glowing with an intense light. The tip of the sword stops right at Jin's neck, but he doesn't move a muscle. The two just stare each other down under the night sky. Jin's eyes are cold and focused, looking like he's already figured out 10 ways to kill the guy. Argus is starting to sweat now. The pressure coming off Jin is making his skin crawl. Jin looks down, seemingly bored with the whole confrontation. Hakama finally loses it and shouts at them to stop before someone gets hurt. Argus pauses for a second, then finally slides his sword back into its sheath. He looks down at Hakama, asking her where the hell they came from. She manages to squeak out that they're from Kodama village. Argus mounts his horse, deciding they'll take the two of them along for the ride. He looks back at Hakama one last time as they prepare to move out. Jin just stands there, watching the knights get their gear ready. The troop suddenly takes off, leaving Hakama stumbling to keep up. They charge down the mountain road on their weird horned mounts, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Hakama and Argus ride side by side, the wind whipping through their hair. Argus goes quiet, his face hidden in the shadows as he thinks about what just happened. Hakama looks over at him, confused by why he's suddenly acting so weird. The green-haired knight rides along behind them, looking pretty shaken up herself. She keeps her eyes forward, but you can tell she's still thinking about that silver-haired guy. Jin follows along from behind, looking as calm as if he were just taking a walk in the park. Argus admits to himself that he tried to make a move back there, but he couldn't. Flashback to the moment his blade was at Jin's throat. He remembers his hand tightening on the grip, ready to end it. But before he could even twitch, Jin's hand was already moving toward his coat, faster than any human should be. Argus realized then that the guy had reacted before he'd even finished his own thought. The spirits that give the knights their power were literally fleeing in terror from Jin. Hakama felt it too, an overwhelming pressure that made her lungs feel tight. The light from the spirits began to break apart and fade away around her. Hakama and the other knight can only exchange a silent look as they keep riding. The knights eventually disappear into the dark, heading straight for the capital. Argus Wilton can't help but sweat, his sharp eyes fixed on the path where he almost lost his life. His subordinates stay quiet, the air still thick with the tension of their standoff. Hakama looks back with a nervous gulp, still reeling from the sheer pressure the silver-haired man put off. Finally, Argus breaks the silence and turns his horse, ready to put this strange encounter behind them. The knights ride off into the night, their golden armor gleaming faintly under the moon. When a subordinate tries to apologize, Argus just gives them a stern lesson on valuing character over raw power. Far across the mountains, the royal capital of Kolmosia shines like a beacon, the center of the world's new civilization. By the time the sun is up, Jin Shidō and Hakama are already deep into their journey, trekking toward the city. Hakama is full of energy, her animal ears twitching as she looks up at her new travel companion with pure wonder. She recalls the stern knights and their elitist attitudes, a sharp contrast to the calm man walking beside her. Jin doesn't seem to care about any of that, his focus purely on the road and the information he needs. Hakama starts rambling about holy power, using her hands to describe how people beg spirits for strength. Jin just watches the glowing particles in the air, knowing exactly what those spirits really are. Hakama skips ahead with a song in her heart, while Jin follows at a distance, lost in thought. He mumbles to himself about the lesser species comment, finding the whole hierarchy of this new world almost funny. Hakama enthusiastically describes the world's diverse residents, from graceful merfolk to the sturdy insect tribes. She talks about people who live in the deepest trenches of the ocean, thriving where others would be crushed, and others who dwell in the branches of massive trees, living in harmony with nature and the spirits. Jin listens to it all with a quiet intensity, his eyes fixed on the horizon as he prepares for whatever comes next. In this new world, the social ladder is harsh. If you don't have animal ears or a tail, you're considered a lesser species and treated like garbage. Jin Shidō and Hakama are sticking to the mountain trails on their way to the capital, trying to stay under the radar. They're making good time until something on the road ahead brings them to a dead stop. Jin narrows his eyes. He can feel the tension in the air before he even sees the problem. Up ahead, a girl with blue hair suddenly collapses right in the middle of the dirt path. Hakama doesn't even think twice, she sprints over to see if the girl is still breathing. The girl is a mess, covered in dirt and bruises like she's been running for her life. She's barely clinging to consciousness, her breathing heavy and ragged. She looks up with desperate eyes, gasping for air as Hakama reaches her. Jin catches up and looks her over. He can tell these injuries weren't caused by a fall or an animal. Hakama tries to steady her, but the girl's expression suddenly goes cold. Jin starts to gather a bit of power in his hand to help her, but he realizes something is off. In a flash, the girl pulls a hidden blade and grabs Hakama, using her as a human shield. Jin just stands there. He's not even reaching for a weapon, which just confuses her more. The girl, Nino, is clearly terrified, but she keeps the knife pressed right against Hakama's throat. Jin's gaze is flat. He knows exactly what's happening. This whole thing was a setup. The air begins to shimmer behind him as a cloaked figure slowly fades into view. A whole squad of bandits reveals themselves, led by a guy with a goatee who looks way too pleased with himself. They're using some pretty sophisticated stealth tech, turning almost invisible to jump travelers. The leader walks right up to Jin and points a sword at his throat, thinking he's caught a jackpot. He starts gloating about how much a rare specimen like Jin will fetch at the slave market. Hakama is panicking, but a strange glow starts to hum from the pendant around her neck. The bandit leader tells Jin to stay quiet if he wants the kid to keep her head. Jin doesn't look scared at all. He's just observing the sword like it's a mildly interesting toothpick. Hakama looks up at Nino, realizing the girl who played victim is actually one of the bad guys. The leader is already planning how to spend the gold he's going to make off them. Jin just gives him a slight smirk and says, who knows. One of the thugs gets fed up with Jin's attitude and delivers a massive kick to his stomach. But Jin doesn't even budge. It's like the guy just kicked a solid steel pillar, and he's the one who looks hurt. Nino is starting to get a bad feeling about this, her hand shaking as she holds the knife. The leader decides to end the games and summons a blast of lightning using his spirit arts. The shockwave hits Hakama, knocking her out instantly as the electricity surges through her. Flash forward a bit, and Jin is sitting in a cold iron cage. He's been stripped of his clothes, but he looks completely unbothered. Hakama wakes up in the cage next to him, still dazed and terrified. Jin looks over and tells her to relax. He's doing just fine. The place is huge, a massive underground warehouse full of people locked in cages just like them. It's a grim sight. The air is thick with the sound of chains and quiet sobbing. In the other cages, people look like they've completely given up hope, their spirits broken by the bandits. A green-haired girl huddled in the corner just stares at the ground, tears streaming down her face. Jin just sits there cross-legged, looking more like he's meditating than being a prisoner. Hakama can't believe it. She tells him he's way too calm given they're about to be sold. Suddenly, the heavy door at the top of the stairs swings open, letting in a sliver of light from the outside. Jin is just chilling in his cell, totally unfazed. He's been in tight spots before, just in a different lifetime. Nino shows up with a tray of food, looking even worse than before, bruised up and clearly feeling guilty for her part in the trap. Hakama isn't having it. She starts shouting at the bars, demanding to know why they were betrayed by the person they tried to help. Nino doesn't say a word. She just stares at Jin with a haunted look in her eyes. Hakama is practically shaking the bars. She can't stand the sight of the girl who led them straight into an ambush. Jin finally stands up. He doesn't look angry, he looks like he's about to get to work. He reaches out and grips the heavy iron bars with his bare hands. Nino's jaw drops as she watches him. Normal humans aren't supposed to have that kind of raw strength. A soft green light begins to pulse from Jin's hand, the nanomachines are responding to his command. Nino is suddenly washed in the glow. She doesn't know what's happening, but the pain from her injury starts to melt away. She stares at her hands in disbelief as the bruises literally vanish before her eyes. For the first time, a glimmer of hope returns to her expression. Jin looks at her. He knows she didn't do this out of malice, she was just another victim of the system. It brings back memories of the old world. A memory of a girl crying while her brother was snatched away by the same kind of scum. Nino was just a kid caught in a nightmare, forced to do terrible things just to keep her family alive. Hakama watches Jin, sensing a shift in his energy. He doesn't need words. His presence alone is enough to tell her that the game is over. Down the hall, a guard with wolf ears is bragging about how much they're going to make from this new batch of slaves. He's totally oblivious, probably thinking about what he's going to buy with his cut of the profit. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door explodes outward as Jin kicks it, and the guard, straight across the room. Jin steps out into the hallway, the cage door bent out of shape like it was made of cardboard. Blue energy starts to swirl around him. This is the aura of the ultimate weapon waking up. His mind drifts back to the year 21XX, to a world of skyscrapers and neon lights that's long since turned to dust. Back then, Jin was just a kid in a hoodie, covered in grime and blood in a city that had already started to rot. On the screens, the news was full of heroes who were nothing more than puppets for the corporations. But Jin didn't care about being a hero. He just wanted to survive in the gutters. He was constantly targeted by gangs and street thugs who thought a kid from the slums was an easy mark. They learned the hard way that Jin wasn't just some street rat. He was faster, stronger, and more brutal than anyone they had ever encountered. He didn't just beat them, he straight up crushed them without a second thought. It didn't matter how many of them there were. He'd tear through them like they were nothing. He was a force of nature even before the enhancements, a predator in a city of scavengers. Eventually, the streets were cleared of anyone foolish enough to cross him. He sat on top of the pile he'd built, the undisputed king of the ruins. That's when the scientist, Kagura, found him and offered him a way to become something more. Back in the present, Jin is done reminiscing. It's time to remind this new world why he was called the ultimate weapon. A couple of guards round the corner and freeze, shouting for him to stop right there. Jin doesn't stop. He moves faster than their eyes can follow, dropping the first guy before he can even blink. The guard slumps to the floor, his eyes rolling back into his head. The others try to draw their weapons, but Jin is already on them, sending one flying with a single strike. He grabs another by the chest and slams him into his buddy, clearing the path forward. One guy tries to swing a club, but Jin just sidesteps it and prepares to deliver a finishing blow. Jin stands over the downed guard, his gaze cold and unforgiving. The remaining guard cringes on the floor, his voice trembling as he asks, "What the hell are you?" Jin turns his attention to the man in the brown coat, the leader of this operation. The man lets out a pathetic squeal, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. From inside the cages, Hakama and the other children watched the scene in stunned silence, their eyes wide with disbelief at the power Jin is displaying. Nino is breathless, her hand clutched to her chest as she watches the man she betrayed take control of the entire room. "He's the guardian god," Hakama explains, her voice filled with newfound reverence. Nino can only stammer back, "A god." The children watch in awe as Jin prepares to finish off the remaining captors. He looks less like a man and more like a force of nature. Desperate, the slave trader pulls out a glowing orb of holy power. He tries to muster some courage, a mad glint in his eye as he prepares to strike back. But his bravado vanishes the moment he makes eye contact with Jin. He begins to back away, his hands clawing at the air in pure terror. "You want slaves?" he screams, pointing a trembling finger toward a massive, reinforced cage at the back of the room. Inside that cage sits a small, blue-haired boy, Nino's brother, along with several other children, all shivering in the dark. Jin's expression remains stone-cold. He's seen this kind of cruelty before, and his patience for it has long since run out. The trader collapses onto the floor, his legs giving out as he scoots backward to get away from the approaching god. He looks up at Jin, his eyes bulging with fear as he realizes that no amount of gold or trickery is going to save him today. Jin walks toward him with slow, heavy steps, his powerful physique illuminated by the dim light of the hideout. The trader is slick with sweat, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he realizes he has finally met someone he can't buy or bully. Jin looks down at him with an expression of pure disdain. To a weapon designed to save the world, this man is nothing more than trash. Seeing a moment's distraction, the trader scrambles to his feet and sprints past the cages, his only thought being his own survival. He reaches a large lever on the wall and pulls it down with a frantic cry, hoping to unleash one last horror to cover his escape. With a deafening clang, the heavy iron gate slides open, revealing a chamber containing a monster from the Age of Ruin. A massive, purple-fleshed corruptor stomps out of the shadows, its weight cracking the stone floor with every thunderous step. The monster roars, a sound of pure malice that shakes the very walls of the hideout. "Wreck everything you've got," the trader screams from a safe distance. The corruptor lunges at Jin, its massive, clawed arm swinging down like a wrecking ball made of purple muscle. Jin doesn't even flinch. His blue eyes flare with an artificial light as he locks onto the beast's movements. With a dull thud that echoes through the room, Jin catches the monster's colossal punch with his bare hands. The beast strains against him, its monstrous strength pitted against the ultimate weapon, but Jin doesn't budge an inch. Jin tenses his muscles, the nanomachines in his blood humming as they channel a massive surge of power into his counterattack. He delivers a devastating punch straight into the monster's maw, the impact shattering its teeth and sending a shockwave through its body. The corruptor is sent flying backward across the room. When it comes to corruptors, Jin says, his voice like grinding stone. He raises his hands, and a blinding beam of concentrated blue energy erupts from his palms, filling the chamber with light. The monster is instantly vaporized, leaving nothing behind but a smear of black sludge. The traitor stares in mute horror, his last hope disintegrated in seconds. Jin turns his attention back to the traitor, who is now nothing more than a pathetic, trembling heap on the floor. "Please. I'll give you everything," the man begs, his hands clasped together in a desperate, sniveling plea for mercy. Jin doesn't say a word. He simply grabs the man and slams him into the stone wall with enough force to knock him out cold. With the fighting over, Jin calmly reaches for his dark coat, pulling it on over his broad shoulders. He adjusts the collar with practiced ease, looking like a commander surveying a battlefield he's already won. He glances back at the children in the cages, his sharp gaze checking for any signs of injury or lingering threats. Seeing their tormentor finally defeated, the children burst into tears of joy, their small hands clutching the bars as they realize they're safe. Jin finds a stack of documents on a nearby desk, his mind already working on how to track down the rest of this organization. He looks closely at one of the papers, which is covered in a strange, modern script he doesn't fully recognize. Jin flips through the pages, his brow furrowed as he tries to decipher the traitor's illegal ledgers. "A single word of this," he mutters. Behind him, the traitor is slumped against a wall with a massive hole in it, a silent testament to the lopsided battle. Jin kneels down to examine the lock on the main cage, ready to release the children and lead them home. Close-up of Jin's hand touching a glowing holographic interface. He is using his advanced technology to interface with the hideout systems and gather data. On the ground lie dark, jagged crystals, remnants of the corruptor that Jin just destroyed with a single, powerful strike. Jin kneels in the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic data streams as he retrieves records of the illegal slave trade. We catch a glimpse of the greedy men who profited from this misery, the slave trader and his high-ranking accomplice, Gueta, who watched the sacrifices from safety. Jin stands tall, the blue light of the screens illuminating his determined face. He now has the evidence he needs to expose the rot in this new world's hierarchy. Outside in the village square, a tense atmosphere settles over the crowd as local authorities arrive to secure the area and handle the captives. Nino and her little brother are finally reunited, their terror a thing of the past as they find comfort in each other's embrace. "Thank goodness." Nino cries, her eyes filled with tears of relief as she holds her brother tightly, never wanting to let go again. Jin stands near them, his tall, imposing figure a silent symbol of safety for the children he has just rescued from a lifetime of slavery. Jin senses someone approaching, his eyes narrowing as he looks over his shoulder toward a new arrival among the town's leadership. In the background, the bandits are led away in chains, their illegal operation dismantled and their victims set free by the guardian god. An elderly official with massive ram horns and a thick white beard looks over a ledger with a concerned and grave expression. He approaches Jin and Hakama, his steps careful and deliberate as he faces the man who single-handedly defeated a high-level corruptor. The magistrate bows low, his hand over his heart in a gesture of profound respect and gratitude for Jin's heroic actions. Jin Shidō stands in the center of the village, his silver hair and sharp blue eyes marking him as an outsider in this new era. The village elder, an old man with massive ram horns, looks on with a sweat-beaded brow. He reflects on the harsh hierarchy of their world, where even the powerful must kneel before those on the throne. The elder begins to explain the true reach of the corruption they've stumbled upon. Jin's thoughts turn to Lord Shapian, the mastermind behind the suffering of the local people. The old man presents a thick, rolled-up ledger he's been keeping hidden. His eyes wide with realization, he admits the contents are worse than he ever imagined. Jin takes the document, scanning the lines of names and transactions that prove the slave trade's existence. Hakama and her younger brother watch him anxiously, their futures hanging on his next word. Jin offers a silent reassurance, resting a gloved hand on the boy's head. He tells them they're leaving for the capital. The rot needs to be pulled out by its roots. The elder watches them, knowing the path ahead is fraught with danger. Hakama looks up at Jin, still trying to process the magnitude of the journey they're about to take. She asks if he's really going through with it, her hands clasped tight. Meanwhile, the elite holy knight Argus Wilton can't shake the image of the silver-haired man from his mind. Argus and his squad ride through the gates of his family estate in the royal capital, Kolmozia. He looks troubled, the usual pride in his gaze replaced by a deep sense of unease. He rides alongside his second-in-command, the silence between them heavy. He dismounts, his boots clicking sharply against the stone tiles. The rest of the knights fall in line behind him as they enter the main building. Walking into the grand hall, Argus lets out a long breath, trying to regain his composure. The domestic staff lines the corridor, bowing in perfect unison to welcome him home. An old advisor catches up to him, whispering an urgent report into his ear. They continue deeper into the palace, the weight of the city's politics pressing down on him. From the level above, Miria Wilton watches her brothers return with a skeptical look. Argus dismisses the advisor with a wave, his patience worn thin. He rubs his temples, the memory of Jin's overwhelming presence causing a physical headache. He recalls the monsters he's faced, but nothing feels quite like the threat he just met on the road. His blue eyes flare with a sudden intensity as he makes a decision. Shadows drape across the castle, signaling a shift in the power balance of the world. Far away, Jin and the children wave goodbye to the village, setting off on their long journey to the heart of the kingdom. Jin Shidō leads the kids along the mountain path toward the capital. One of the boys looks up at him, wondering if someone like them can even survive in such a big place. Jin just gives him a reassuring smile, telling him not to worry. Hakama is practically glowing with excitement. Another girl spots their destination on the horizon and points it out. They reach the cliffside, and the massive walled capital finally comes into view. The city is a sprawling maze of white stone and bustling crowds. Jin notes how much more lively the world has become compared to the silence he woke up to. The kids are instantly distracted by the endless rows of shops and stalls. A girl explains that people from their village come here to sell their specialties. Jin spots groups of bug folk walking through the market. Even fish folk are out and about, showcasing the world's diverse new races. Every shop seems to be doing a brisk trade with travelers. Local kids with animal ears play in the streets, looking completely carefree. Jin watches the piece carefully, knowing how fragile things usually are. He spots a soldier barking orders at some fishfolk workers, making them clear the way. The casual discrimination is hard to miss. A noble girl with a butterfly hairclip walks past, her head held high in total indifference. She stops for a second to glare at Jin's group as they pass by. This is Miria Wilton, and she clearly has no patience for lesser species in her city. Jin ignores her and leads the kids toward a large, well-kept building. The children immediately lose their minds, diving onto the soft beds like they've never seen a mattress. For kids who grew up in a ruined village, this is basically heaven. Jin sits on the edge of the bed, his mind already switching back to business mode. He produces a heavy pouch filled with gold coins. The girl hoists the bag with a triumphant grin, feeling like royalty. Hakama stays focused, helping the younger boy settle in. Jin thinks about Argus Wilton, the knight who's his best chance at finding more info. He knows he can't leave the children unprotected while he goes undercover. He realizes there are plenty of people in this city looking to exploit anyone they deem lesser. He looks out at the city as the sun begins to set. Down in the streets, the beast folk are wrapping up their day's work. One of the girls asks Jin what their life is going to be like from now on. She flops onto the bed, looking a bit overwhelmed by the scale of everything. Jin stays quiet, weighing the price of the mission Argus has offered him. A winged woman with pink hair greets them at the door with a bright smile. Outside, the kids look a bit dejected about the prospect of Jin leaving them. Jin finishes the arrangements for their stay, making sure they'll be safe. He gives them one last look, signaling that he'll be back soon. Later that night, he goes over his plan, drawing a rough map on the ground. He lets out a tired sigh, already sensing the trouble brewing in the capital. Watching from the shadows, a pair of thugs have already marked the lesser species group as an easy target. Jin is walking through the capital when a shadow suddenly looms over him. A gray-haired beastman lunges at him with a heavy punch. Jin blocks the attack effortlessly, not even breaking his stride. He holds the guy's fist in place with one hand, looking bored by the effort. The attacker is stunned, his confident grin disappearing as he realizes he can't move. Jin's eyes are cold, and he hasn't even looked the guy in the face yet. With a quick, forceful throw, Jin slams the beastman into the pavement. The impact sends a shockwave through the street, terrifying the crowd of onlookers. The partner, a red-haired thug, steps forward, his hands starting to glow with spirit energy. Hakama and the other children huddle behind Jin, scared of the escalating fight. The red-haired guy mocks Jin, calling him a lesser species that needs to learn its place. He and his companion laugh, assuming Jin was just lucky with that first hit. The thug winds up for a heavy strike, his arm wreathed in magical energy. He puts his full weight into the punch, certain it will end the fight. Jin doesn't even blink as the fist comes flying toward his head. He catches the guy by the wrist and slams him down beside his partner. The beastman's eyes are wide with shock. He can't fathom how he was countered so easily. Desperate, he ignites his spirit art, fire exploding from his hands in a frantic blast. A massive fireball engulfs the street, making the onlookers scream in terror. Jin stands right in the center of the inferno, completely untouched by the heat. With a single wave of his hand, he dispels the fire like it was nothing more than smoke. The thug is trembling now, his confidence completely shattered by Jin's power. Jin reaches through the fading embers, his hand closing around the beastman's throat. He lifts him off the ground, looking like he's picking up a piece of trash. Jin tells him to come back only once he's actually learned how to use his power properly. His gaze is terrifying, his eyes glowing with a faint, lethal blue light. He tosses the thug aside as a young girl in the crowd watches, her eyes wide with amazement. Suddenly, a female knight in white armor appears, pointing her spear at Jin. She demands to know what a lesser species thinks he's doing fighting in the middle of the capital. Jin drops the other thug, not even sparing the newcomer a glance as he does. The knight is furious, her ears pinned back as she shouts at him to explain himself. The beast folk in the crowd whisper, clearly siding with the knight against the human. Jin stands over the defeated thugs, looking down at them with total indifference. The knight girl narrows her eyes, her hand tightening on the shaft of her spear. She asks if he's trying to pick a fight with her as well. Then she lets out a loud, mocking laugh, amused by his apparent arrogance. Her laughter dies in an instant when she sees the literal craters in the street. She looks at the wolfman, who is still out cold and buried in the rubble. Squatting down, she checks the damage, her face turning pale as she realizes the strength required. She rubs her head, realizing this lesser species is far more dangerous than he looks. Jin asks if she's the one they call the lady, while the thugs are dragged away in the background. He gives her a small, confident smile that tells her he's not someone to be messed with. The female knight continues her lecture, her voice echoing through the quiet street. Her eyes narrow with deep suspicion as she studies the strange man standing before her. Jin remains completely unfazed by her scrutiny, while Hakama looks on with wide, curious eyes. Anyway, she huffs, turning her back to him as she prepares to lead them away from the scene. Wait, Jin calls out, his calm and steady voice stopping her in her tracks. She looks back over her shoulder, her expression full of irritation at being interrupted once again. They arrive at the Argus estate, a grand mansion that stands as a powerful symbol of noble authority. Inside, Jin sits with perfect posture, his natural presence dominating the room even while he's relaxed. Across from him, Argus Wilton is visibly shaken, cold sweat beading on his forehead as they talk. Jin sits with the children he rescued, their small forms a sharp contrast to the high-stakes negotiation. Argus can hardly believe the demands being made, his eyes darting between Jin and the quiet kids. He rests his chin on his hand, deeply troubled by the weight of the decision he must make. The blue-haired children watch with bated breath, their futures hanging on Argus's next words. Jin glances at them with a reassuring gaze, his calm and collected demeanor never wavering. "I don't do half measures," he states firmly, making it clear that his help comes with specific conditions. The night girl stands nearby, watching the exchange with a mixture of awe and confusion. Upon hearing Argus's agreement to the deal, the children's faces light up with pure, unadulterated joy. Argus closes his eyes, conceding to Jin's terms as he realizes he has no other viable choice. He reopens them, his gaze sharp and focused as he prepares to reveal his own counteroffer. Jin is momentarily taken aback by the unexpected proposal, instructor. To his surprise, the oldest of the rescued girls is already being fitted for a neat maid's uniform. Jin crosses his arms, looking at the girl with a faint, approving nod of encouragement. She bows deeply toward Argus, her voice filled with sincere gratitude for this new beginning. Argus looks toward his household staff, ensuring that the children will be well integrated into the estate. The children wave goodbye as they are led away to start their new lives, their smiles bright and full of hope. With the children safe, Jin, Hakama, and Argus walk through the mansion to discuss the next phase of their plan. Argus's expression turns somber, the heavy weight of his official responsibilities returning to the forefront. Under the cover of night, the sprawling academy looms in the distance like a massive fortress of shadows. Jin listens intently, his sharp eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation Argus is describing. Argus explains the hidden dangers lurking within the city's walls, dangers that even a holy knight cannot face alone. He speaks of the political instability and the shadowy factions vying for total control of the kingdom. He reveals that powerful conspirators are plotting in secret, their influence reaching every corner of the capital. He shows Jin the reports of recent attacks, his voice tight with the frustration of being unable to stop them. The image of a sneering nobleman flashes through the conversation, a man whose ambition knows no bounds. They stop before a pair of ornate double doors, the air suddenly thick with an underlying tension. With a steady and respectful hand, Argus knocks, announcing their arrival to the person inside. The doors swing open, revealing a lavishly decorated parlor bathed in a warm, soft light. Seated on a plush sofa is a blonde noblewoman, her refined beauty matched only by her icy, calculative gaze. As they enter, Argus takes his place by her side, his posture becoming noticeably stiff and formal. The woman, Miria Wilton, peers over the top of her fan, her eyes full of disdain for the lesser guest. Argus winces, already sensing the sharp tongue of his sister about to lash out at their visitor. Jin stands tall before her, his indifferent expression a silent, bold challenge to her noble arrogance. Jin Shidō remains perfectly composed, even as Argus Wilton looks increasingly stressed by the weight of their conversation. The female knight speaks up, her voice tinged with frustration as she mentions the severe treatment of lesser species in the city. Miria Wilton stands with refined elegance, her sharp blue eyes carefully judging the strangers her brother has brought home. She hides her expression behind a white fan, but her gaze remains cold and filled with noble arrogance. Jin leans in to whisper a quick warning to Hakama, sensing the tension and prejudice radiating from the young noblewoman. Miria closes her eyes with a dismissive sigh, clearly unimpressed by Jin's lack of traditional status. Hakama looks up with wide, curious eyes, feeling the weight of the complex social hierarchies for the first time. Miria continues to speak with a sharp, sophisticated tone that leaves little room for argument. As she sweeps past them, Jin watches her with an analytical gaze, already noting the pride that defines the Wilton bloodline. She casts a final, suspicious look over her shoulder, unable to shake the feeling that Jin is hiding something significant. Argus rubs his forehead in exhaustion, caught between his sister's temperament and the urgent needs of the kingdom. The night girl scratches her head in confusion, struggling to keep up with the shifting dynamics in the room. Argus explains the importance of the mission, his face shadowed by the gravity of the potential succession war. The group gathers in the grand library, the air thick with the importance of the plan they are about to set in motion. Jin listens intently to the briefing, his mind already calculating the most efficient way to infiltrate the academy. They discuss the core magical elements of this world, fire, lightning, ice, and healing, which Jin must appear to master. Argus looks at him with a mix of hope and uncertainty, wondering if a lesser species can truly handle such a task. Jin rests his hand on his chin, weighing the offer to become an instructor against the dangers he knows are lurking. He recalls the thugs he effortlessly defeated, knowing that the conspirators at the academy will be far more dangerous. A faint, confident smile plays on his lips as he prepares to show them what real power looks like. A brilliant blue light erupts from Jin's hand as he activates his nanomachines, stunning everyone with his overwhelming aura. 1 week later, the morning sun rises over the sprawling towers of Harnisk Academy for the start of the entrance exams. Academy staff in blue uniforms are busy processing the hundreds of students gathering at the grand stone gates. Inside one of the grand halls, Hakama sits at a wooden desk, focused and determined as she begins her written exam. Jin follows Argus and Ludman down a long, fancy hallway. Ludman looks back, clearly not a fan of the human following behind them. Jin just keeps a straight face as they walk. Ludman strokes his beard, probably wondering what the knight is up to. They walk into an office where the academy headmistress is waiting behind a desk. She sits with her hands folded, looking far from welcoming. Argus steps up to introduce Jin, trying to sound as professional as possible. The woman just stares, sizing Jin up with a cold, analytical look. She leans back in her chair, clearly skeptical of everything she's hearing. She starts waving her hand around, questioning why someone like him is even there. Her eyes are sharp, filled with the same bias everyone else in this city has for humans. Jin doesn't flinch, meeting her gaze head-on without a word. The three beast race leaders all turn their attention to the lone human in the center of the room. Jin finally opens his mouth, his voice calm and steady. Argus starts sweating a bit, knowing how badly this meeting could go. The knight keeps pushing, trying to explain that Jin isn't some normal commoner. The headmistress closes her eyes, thinking over the proposal for a second. That's when the wolfman teacher, Gueta, loses it and starts shouting in protest. He points right at Jin, offended that a lesser species would even stand in this room. Gueta slams the table, his face turning red as he continues his rant. The headmistress just watches the drama unfold without moving an inch. Ludman gets a kick out of the scene, touching his chin with a smug grin. He turns away, casually mentioning how the students would never respect a guy like Jin. The headmistress raises her hand, telling them both to quiet down. Argus glances at Jin, hoping he's got a plan to prove them all wrong. Jin gives a quick bow, looking ready to accept whatever trial they throw at him. The woman watches him closely, wondering if he's actually got the guts to back up his words. Jin's eyes sharpen. He's done playing nice with these people. Ludman and Gueta trade looks, already convinced the human is going to fail. The headmistress finally smirks, deciding a little show might be fun after all. She heads for the door, telling Jin his entrance test starts right now. They arrive at the Spirit Arts training ground, a massive outdoor arena. Gueta is already down there, mocking Jin in front of the gathered crowd. The wolfman looks incredibly confident, acting like he's about to squash a bug. Jin stays perfectly still, which only seems to piss the teacher off even more. The headmistress steps between them to get things started. The students in the stands are already whispering about why a regular human is in the ring. Miria Wilton watches from the crowd, her face showing total confusion. Jin takes a breath, ready to show them what a real weapon looks like. The officials watch from the balcony, expecting a quick beatdown. To them, humans are just weaklings with pathetic spirit power. Gueta gets ready to lunge, but Jin doesn't even move an inch. Gueta smirks, thinking he's already won this. He launches a massive fireball straight at the human. Jin doesn't even break a sweat, effortlessly dodging the blast as it explodes behind him. The students in the stands are completely speechless. Gueta's grin vanishes, replaced by pure confusion. He doesn't stop there, immediately charging up a barrage of lightning-based spirit arts. He fires off a series of glowing yellow projectiles. Jin just flips through the air, making the whole thing look like a routine. Gueta is getting desperate now, throwing everything he has at his target. He gathers a massive amount of energy between his palms. He unleashes a concentrated beam of light, intended to incinerate Jin once and for all. The arena is engulfed in a blinding flash of power. But Jin just tilts his head, watching the beam pass by as if it's moving in slow motion. He slides back across the stone floor, his expression still completely bored. The dust settles, showing Jin hasn't taken a single scratch. He decides it's time to end the farce and starts gathering a small orb of blue energy in his hand. He tells Gueta he'll show him just a fraction of his actual power. Gueta can only watch, paralyzed by the sudden shift in the air. Before he can even move, an overwhelming weight slams Gueta face first into the ground. Ludman and the headmistress can't believe what they're seeing. Even Argus is sweating, realizing Jin's power is even crazier than he thought. Miria Wilton stares in disbelief. She's never seen anything like this before. Gueta is pinned to the floor, the ground beneath him cracking from the sheer pressure. He can barely even breathe, let alone stand back up. Jin just smirks at the struggling wolfman. He casually adjusts his gloves, looking like he just finished a light workout. The lesser species is standing tall while the elite teacher is stuck in a crater. Jin looks down at his opponent with a cold, piercing gaze. He points a finger, maintaining the gravity field with zero effort. Gueta grits his teeth, his pride shattered along with the arena floor. He shouts out in a panic, his voice trembling with fear. He screams that it must be some kind of trick, refusing to accept reality. But Jin just stands there, letting the silence do the talking. The officials on the balcony are left in a stunned silence. The students are buzzing now, their narrow views of humans completely flipped. Miria Wilton is sweating, her heart racing as she tries to process what just happened. She can't take her eyes off the guy who just humbled one of their strongest instructors. Gueta eventually gets up and tries to grab Jin's collar, but he's already lost. Word of the duel spreads quickly through the massive Harness Academy. Later that day, the entire student body is called to the main auditorium. Even the lower-class students are there, looking nervous about the sudden announcement. The headmistress stands at the podium, holding a glowing mana orb as she prepares to speak. The headmistress continues her speech in the massive auditorium, detailing the prestige and history of the Holy Knights. Up on the balcony, Miria Wilton and her classmates look down, observing the unusual atmosphere of the ceremony. Miria holds her fan, her expression unreadable as she watches the official proceedings from above. A red-haired student with lion ears waves a hand dismissively as he strikes up a conversation with his peer. He turns to Miria, commenting on how rare it is for a high-ranking noble like her to actually attend the entrance ceremony. Down in the seats, Jin Shidō sits among the beast folk, his presence a stark contrast to the animalistic traits surrounding him. The red-haired student suddenly shouts out in surprise, his eyes widening at the headmistress's latest announcement. He starts sweating, his arrogant facade crumbling as he realizes the hierarchy is about to be shaken. Miria glances over at him, her own suspicion growing as she tries to make sense of the changing situation. From his seat, Jin looks up at the balcony where the elite students are gathered, his gaze calm and unwavering. He doesn't seem bothered by the hundreds of eyes staring down at him with undisguised contempt. Whispers erupt through the auditorium as the students try to process the lesser species in their midst. A heavy silence falls over the hall as Jin's sheer presence exerts an unspoken pressure on everyone nearby. The sun shines over the massive spires of Harnisk Academy, an institution built on a long history of beast race dominance. Later, in a smaller lecture hall, Gueta stands at the podium while Jin stands stoically in the center of the room. Gueta wears a snide, narrow grin, clearly enjoying the awkwardness of Jin's first day as a teacher. He gestures to the rows of mostly empty desks, mocking the lack of attendance for the humans' first session. Miria Wilton is one of the few who actually showed up, though she sits with her arms crossed, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Gueta's smile turns even more malicious as he prepares to introduce the man who publicly humiliated him. He stands next to Jin, the height difference making the Academy's prejudice feel even more palpable. With a sweeping, sarcastic gesture, Gueta finally yields the floor, his eyes glinting with a hidden agenda. Jin steps forward and introduces himself to the class with simple, blunt authority. The red-haired student sits at the back with a few others, his expression darkening as he listens to the newcomer. He leans back, his arms crossed defiantly, refusing to acknowledge a human as his superior. Jin catches the student's gaze and lets out a small, knowing smirk, unaffected by the hostility. The red-haired student smirks back, his eyes showing that he's looking for any excuse to challenge his new instructor. Jin Shidō knows his history. He was built for a single purpose. He focuses the power that once made him a god of war. With one thought, he erases a monster from existence. He looks at his hand, feeling the weight of the task ahead. Energy begins to hum around his fist as he gathers his strength. Miria Wilton watches him closely, her face etched with a mix of dread and awe. A student smirks, thinking he's seen it all before. Gueta, the wolfman instructor, leans back and mocks the lesser species standing on the stage. The rest of the class laughs along, enjoying the spectacle of someone way out of their league. Jin doesn't even flinch. He just tells them to hit him with everything they've got. He dares the teacher to fire his strongest attack right then and there. Gueta takes the bait, charging up a lethal mix of fire and lightning. While Ludman panics in the background, Jin stands his ground, unfazed. With a roar, the instructor unleashes a massive, point-blank blast. The surge of energy streaks across the training grounds, heading straight for Jin. A massive explosion tears through the hall, sending debris flying everywhere. Gueta grins, convinced he's just turned the newcomer into ash. But as the smoke clears, a swirling vortex is seen absorbing every bit of the blast. A stray beam of light misses the target, slamming into the rows of seats. Gueta stares in horror as the wall behind him crumbles under the pressure. Jin walks through the dust, looking like he's just finished a morning stroll. He raises a hand, and a hexagonal barrier shimmers into existence around him. The students go dead silent, their cocky attitudes vanishing in an instant. Nobody can believe what they're seeing. It shouldn't be possible for a human. Jin explains that spirit arts are just wavelengths, and he's mastered every single one. He gives a cool smirk, ready to turn their entire worldview upside down. He tells them that everything they thought they knew about magic is a lie. Gueta tries to snap back, but he's too shaken to even form a sentence. He tries to manifest a flame, but his hands won't stop trembling. Jin shows him how it's really done, conjuring a sphere of pure blue energy. Then he casually switches it to fire, and then to a crackling bolt of lightning. He doesn't stop there, demonstrating high-level healing and ice arts in quick succession. Miria and the others are frozen in place, their brains struggling to keep up. He adds dark energy and light manipulation to the mix, juggling them with ease. A geometric prism forms in his palm, a display of spatial mastery they've never seen. Gueta finally breaks, his screams of terror echoing through the training hall. Jin dismisses the magic, leaving nothing but a few drifting sparks. He flashes a polite smile, though his eyes remain cold. With the lesson over, he turns his back on the stunned crowd and walks away. Behind him, the students can't stop whispering about the monster they just witnessed. Groups of girls gossip as he passes, their eyes filled with a new kind of interest. Miria watches him leave, her prejudice completely replaced by a newfound obsession. Jin Shidō isn't here to make friends, but he's already got an audience. Miria Wilton can't take her eyes off him after that display. She follows him out, demanding to know how he can use every single spirit art. Miria stands her ground, her skepticism growing as Jin keeps his secrets close. Jin just gives her a look like she's asking the most obvious question in the world. He explains that power is just a matter of wavelengths, though that definitely goes over her head. Despite her pride, Miria finds herself trailing behind him like a lost puppy. She tries to act tough, but it's clear she's hooked on finding out his secret. Jin doesn't seem to mind the company as they head into the deeper parts of the academy. Miria keeps pressing for answers, but Jin's mind is clearly elsewhere. He starts talking about things that happened an eternity ago, back when the world was different. Even though it was 100 million years in the past, the memories of his life as a soldier are still vivid. He remembers the strategy sessions and the cold precision of the military world he left behind. The sounds of gunfire and explosions echo in his mind, back when he was humanity's ultimate weapon. Miria watches him, sensing a sudden change in the atmosphere around him as he dwells on the past. Jin's eyes grow cold as he recalls the day his world was finally lost. He watched as the Corruptors tore everything apart, and he was powerless to stop the massacre. Miria can't help but notice the sudden weight of sorrow in his silence. They arrive at a dusty old store storage room that everyone else in the academy seems to have forgotten. The shadows stretch across the floor as they step inside the neglected chamber. It looks like a dead end, but Jin's intuition tells him there's more to this room than meets the eye. He scans the bookshelves, his eyes landing on a small wooden owl that seems out of place. Miria shows him a set of blueprints she managed to dig up, though they don't make much sense to her. The drawing confirms his suspicion: there's a hidden room that shouldn't exist according to official records. Jin reaches out and pulls the trigger mechanism hidden within the owl statue. With a heavy thud, the floor begins to shift, revealing a hidden set of stairs leading downward. The dark passage leads down into the depths, and the air coming from below is freezing. Miria hesitates, her curiosity finally being met with a healthy dose of fear as they stand at the entrance. She watches the mechanism work, amazed at the ancient technology hidden right under their feet. Jin doesn't wait around, stepping into the darkness without a second thought. He turns back to her, and for a moment, the silence of the basement is suffocating. Miria quickly follows, not wanting to be left alone in the creepy storage room. Jin conjures a small light orb, illuminating the ancient stone walls as they descend. Miria stays close to his side, her heart racing as they go deeper under the academy. The stairs seem to lead to a place where time itself has stood still. She whispers, wondering what kind of place could be hidden so deep underground. Jin mentions that Ludman-sensei might be involved in whatever is going on down here. The fat noble has always been acting suspicious, and his connection to this lab seems likely. It wouldn't be a surprise if the man was using his position to hide something sinister. Jin leads the way, his senses on high alert for any signs of the traitor lurking in the dark. They reach a massive metal door that hums with a faint, familiar energy from Jin's past. Suddenly, a voice shouts out in surprise. Someone wasn't expecting guests in their secret lab. They step into a long-abandoned corridor, the air thick with the smell of decay. Jin stops suddenly, his senses picking up something unsettling in the silence. He looks back at Miria, his expression uncharacteristically grim for someone who just won a battle. Ahead of them stands a massive iron door, sealed with heavy locking mechanisms. Miria's breath hitches, she can feel a dark, oppressive power radiating from behind the steel. Jin approaches the entrance, his mind racing with memories of 100 million years ago. He knows this design. It's not magic, it's technology from his own era. He recalls the face of a girl he once knew, and the heavy price of the secrets they kept. Stepping forward, he channels a specific frequency of energy into his hand to trigger the lock. The door responds to his touch, a holographic scan confirming his highest level access. As the heavy doors grind open, Miria can only stare in mute horror at what lies within. Inside, a nightmare is kept behind bars, a colossal corruptor, frozen in a state of unnatural sleep. Miria recoils, her hands trembling as the sheer scale of the monster finally sinks in. Jin walks into the chamber as if he's seen this 1,000 times before. He explains to her that these aren't just myths, they're the same monsters that ended his world. They move deeper into the lab, passing row after row of containment units holding various beasts. A bipedal creature with glowing yellow eyes watches them from its cage, its growl muffled by the glass. The facility is a graveyard of things that should have stayed dead long ago. Jin stares down another creature, his face a mask of cold determination and suppressed memories. He knows exactly what these things are capable of, and why someone is keeping them here. Another cage holds a massive, muscular demon, its body coursing with dark, volatile energy. The deepest part of the lab holds the most dangerous specimen, a multi-eyed horror with writhing tentacles. Miria hides behind her fan, her noble composure completely shattered by the sight. She can barely breathe in the presence of such concentrated, ancient malice. Jin turns to her, his voice steady as he delivers a harsh truth about the Academy's secrets. He explains that someone is trying to use these corruptors as weapons for their own gain. Miria looks up at him, realizing the world she thought she knew is built on a foundation of nightmares. Meanwhile, back in the Academy halls, the atmosphere is far less dire for most of the students. But Jin, having returned from his investigation, looks visibly shaken by what he discovered underground. He walks past the ornate astronomical clock, his mind still lingering on the dark technology in the basement. He moves with a purpose that ignores the whispers and stares of the common students. The clock ticks away, a silent witness to the secrets buried deep beneath the school. Gueta watches the students gossip, his face turning red as he hears them laughing about his defeat. He clenches his fists, the humiliation of being beaten by a lesser human eating him alive. Lightning seems to crackle in his eyes as his fury reaches a dangerous boiling point. He storms through the hallway, his boots thudding loudly against the ancient stone floor. Every laugh he hears feels like a personal insult directed at his pride and lineage. He finds an elder faculty member and begins a loud, incoherent rant about the disrespect he suffered. The woman tries to calm him down, but Gueta is far past listening to reason or logic. He demands that Jin Shidō be punished immediately for his arrogance and supposed crimes. The faculty member sighs, rubbing her forehead as she deals with yet another of Gueta's temper tantrums. She gives him a sharp, judging look, her patience finally wearing thin as he continues to make a scene. A menacing purple energy cracks across the sky above the academy, casting a sinister glow over the towers. Miria Wilton sprints through the stone hallways, her blonde hair flying behind her as she tries to make sense of the horror she just witnessed. She pushes through a heavy door, her face pale with a fear that she's never known in her sheltered noble life. Stumbling to a halt, she clutches her chest, her lungs burning as she struggles to regain her composure. The memory of the monstrous corruptors in their cages haunts her, making the very air of the academy feel cold and hostile. She looks around frantically, the realization that her world is built on a foundation of lies finally sinking in. Her path is suddenly blocked by Ludman, a portly man with thick bear-like ears and a suspicious mustache who serves as an academy administrator. Deep beneath the school, a massive vault door stands open, revealing a chamber bathed in an ominous, blood-red light. Jin Shidō stands at the threshold, sweat dripping down his face as he prepares to deal with the technology he once helped create. In the center of the room, a colossal organic core pulses with a malevolent red glow, restrained by a web of thick cables. The heart of the facility thumps with a rhythmic, low-frequency sound that echoes the ancient malice of the Corruptors. Jin turns his back to the monster, focusing instead on a high-tech console that hums with the familiar energy of his era. He opens a secure briefcase to find a complex metallic cube and a syringe filled with a mysterious, glowing green substance. He lifts the cube, and it immediately recognizes his touch, emitting a brilliant blue light that signifies its activation. A casual-looking man in a lab coat waves from a monitor, coffee mug in hand. Jin Shidō stares at the screen, recognizing the face of his creator, Kagura. The man on the screen settles into his chair and begins explaining the purpose of the facility. He shows off a specialized injector, its green fluid pulsing with strange energy. Kagura leans in with a smirk, putting a finger to his lips as if sharing a secret. Jin's expression tightens as he processes the magnitude of what he's watching. He can barely believe the secrets hidden right beneath the academy floorboards. Behind a massive set of bars, a gargantuan monster sits in silent stasis. Nearby, a pulsating red core hums with an ominous, heavy power. This corruptor is unlike anything he's seen before, larger and far more dangerous. An ancient, intricate clock on the wall marks the passage of an era Jin missed. Jin steps up to a console, his eyes scanning through the rows of glowing data. He navigates the interface, piecing together the true purpose of the laboratory. A diagram illustrates the concept of teleportation, moving objects through space in an instant. He sees images of the monsters bringing chaos to the city above. It all clicks. The recent monster outbreaks were orchestrated using this hidden tech. Kagura's recording continues, but his tone has shifted to something more urgent. Suddenly, a nearby teleportation pod hums to life, swirling with blue light. Jin turns back to the main red core just as it starts to destabilize. The entire laboratory is suddenly swallowed by a blinding flash of light. He braces himself as the shockwave ripples through the underground room. Red light floods the cage, bathing the massive beast in an eerie glow. The creature stirs, its many glowing eyes snapping open after centuries of sleep. A massive pillar of energy erupts, blasting straight through the ceiling toward the surface. Outside, Argus Wilton and his knights watch the sky in absolute horror. Argus breaks into a cold sweat, realizing they're facing a threat they can't handle. High above the capital, the gargantuan corruptor materializes in the middle of the sky. Back in the academy, Miria Wilton stands her ground against a suspicious figure. She channels her spirit arts, a bright glow gathering in her palm. She demands answers from the man who betrayed the academy's trust. Lord Ludman just stands there, a smug, villainous grin across his face. He looks down on her, convinced that his plan has already succeeded. Jin pushes himself into a sprint, desperate to reach the source of the chaos. He charges through the corridors, his coat billowing behind him. Miria finds herself at the mouth of the dark, hidden passage she just uncovered. She confronts Ludman again, finally seeing the true face of the traitor. She prepares to strike, her power surging as she faces the corrupt lord. Ludman lets out a mocking laugh, completely unfazed by her resolve. From the shadows, little Hakama appears, hoisting a massive clay pot over her head. Miria's eyes go wide as she notices the little girl's sudden move. With a heavy thud, Hakama smashes the pot right onto Ludman's head. Miria can only watch in total disbelief as the arrogant lord is taken down by a kid. Hakama wipes sweat from her brow, looking pretty proud of her work with the pot. She stands triumphantly over the unconscious Ludman while her rabbit-eared friend stares in pure shock. Miria Wilton can't believe her eyes, glancing between the kid and the knocked-out traitor. Outside, the piece is shattered by a massive explosion that sends smoke billowing into the sunset sky. The rabbit-eared girl trembles, her eyes wide with fear as the situation turns from bad to worse. Miria rushes to the balcony, looking out over the city as the scale of the disaster becomes clear. "Is this really okay?" the rabbit-eared girl asks, her voice trembling as they look up at the chaos. Miria is too stunned to answer, her gaze fixed on the destruction unfolding below. Jin Shidō steps onto the ledge, his movements calm despite the screams echoing through the streets. He surveys the city from the exit of the secret passage, leaving the traitor Ludman face down on the floor. Hakama grabs his sleeve, her eyes pleading for him to help. Without wasting another second, the group charges out of the building and into the panicked capital. From a rooftop, they see the city is already half consumed by fire and smoke. Civilians scream and run for their lives as a monstrous wolf-like creature tears through the marketplace. High above, a winged beast snatches a man right off the ground. But the real threat looms near the castle, a massive corruptor that makes the others look like ants. The titan lets out a deafening roar that shakes the very foundations of the city. Miria covers her mouth in horror, realizing their defenses won't hold against something that big. Jin grits his teeth, the sight of his creator's tech being used for a massacre finally pushing him over the edge. The rabbit-eared girl points toward the monster, shouting in alarm. The giant begins to gather a terrifying amount of energy into its open maw. It unleashes a massive beam of light that carves a path of destruction through the city. The beam strikes true, heading straight for the heart of the royal castle. Miria and the others can only watch in helpless terror as the city's symbol is targeted. Jin pulls out the green injector he found in the lab, his decision made. As he prepares to use it, blue sparks of ancient technology begin to dance around his hand. A hologram of Kagura appears briefly, explaining the dangerous simplified teleportation device. The monster roars again, firing another devastating blast of energy. A massive tower erupts in flames as the castle takes a direct hit. Before the girls can even blink, Jin is swallowed by a pillar of blue light and vanishes. He materializes high in the air, directly in the path of the monster's next attack. With a flick of his wrist, Jin deploys a hexagonal energy shield, halting the beast's power midair.